Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. It's good to see a full house for the first year. I hope y'all come back every month. I love to see folks out in the crowd. This is the way government is supposed to work. It's 6 o'clock, so I will call this meeting of Mayor and Council this January the 8th, 2019 to order at, like I said, 6 o'clock. We will have our invocation first by Council Member Danny Carter, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and remove your caps.
May we pray? Our Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight with grateful hearts, grateful that we were born into a nation, the greatest nation on this earth. We ask that you would be with our leaders in Washington, that you would guide them and help them to remember what our forefathers envisioned for this nation of ours, that it would be one nation under God. Be with us tonight as we conduct the business of Villa Rica. Help us to lead, guide, and direct us to do the right thing for the city and also for the citizens of Villa Rica. These things we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, first on the agenda we have a couple of ceremonial presentations. So I would ask that Elisa please come forward on the first one, and I'm going to join you in the front. And Janet, yeah, but you're going to come up front too, right? I'm much too old to climb over. I say this quite often, but for those of you that are new to the meeting, just indulge me a couple of minutes. But our greatest resource in this city are the employees that serve us every day, and we are certainly honored to recognize one of those employees. We have a group of great employees in this city, and Janet Chumley is certainly one of those. And she has a distinction now, and I'm going to read that distinction, and then somebody will take some photos, I hope. Georgia Academy of Economic Development hereby acknowledges that Janet Chumley of Service Delivery Region 4 has successfully completed the Regional Economic and Leadership Development Multi-Session Program as of October the 30th, 2018. So Janet, on behalf of a proud city, congratulations and thank you for all things you do. You get to hold it too. I'm going to say something about Janet. This is yours. I guess you'll take it with you. We all, for those, how many of y'all actually came to the Nugget Drop on December 31st? I'm going to say this. Wow, this is good. Thank y'all for being here. It was a rainy night. It was not a cold night. But people sat out in ponchos, and Janet was right there with the band, making sure everything got taken care of. And when the clock struck midnight, and the lights didn't go off on 2019, I saw Janet bolt out of sight to try to get those. So thank you. Those kind of things happen. I've been in recreation all my life, but thank you for responding to that and for the job.
Thank you.
The second piece of business we have is an oath of office for our Downtown Development Authority. Mr. Carl Peabody, if you would come forward. Carl is one of those guys that gives selfless hours to the city of Villa Rica, and we just absolutely could not do the job without you. So let me say that before I give you the oath of office. So if you'll raise your right hand, I'm going to read it, and then if you'll just say at the end, I do. I, Carl Peabody, do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully perform the duties as an appointed board member of the Downtown Development Authority. I am not the holder of any unaccounted for public money due this state or any political subdivision or authority thereof. I am not the holder of any office of trust under the government of the United States, any other state, or any foreign state, which I, by the laws of the state of Georgia, am prohibited from holding. I am otherwise qualified to hold said office according to the Constitution and laws of Georgia. I will perform the duties of my office in the best interest of the city of Villa Rica to the best of my ability without fear, favor, affection, reward, or expectation thereof. And your term is from April 1st, 2018 to March 31st, 2022. Thank you, sir. We'll get a picture here. we'll get you to sign this and debt and all your future worth and everything else for the city. And
Yeah.
thank you again, sir.
Thank you.
Jim got us these fancy mics. We've been working on our audio and video since I started with the city back in 2001, and I think it finally works. So thank you, Jim, for that, and for the council for approving that. My agenda, did I leave my agenda?
He's trying to help us.
Okay. The next item is my State of the City address, and I'm going to say something before I read this. It's 5 pages long, and I've spent about the better part of a month writing it, and Tom's looked it over, a couple other people have looked it over, and it's been a very exciting 24 months as the mayor, and even to get it down to 5 pages was a task, and so I hope you will. I'll take my apology up front that it is a little bit long, but it's concise, and I've tried to hit all the high points and the low points. Okay, so when I was sworn in as your mayor in November of 2016, I expressed to you my vision for the future, and I had a strong sense of optimism about what we could accomplish. What I did not fully understand at the time was that the journey would be hindered by so many issues along the way. However, by working together toward a common purpose, we have made progress, and I declare that the city of Villa Rica is good and, more importantly, improving. To begin with, I want to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for leading me to this place, for guiding my decisions, and for never forsaking me. I also want to thank the Villa Rica City Council for their leadership, their support, and their friendship. I want to thank our city manager and our great staff for working with elected officials and for helping us to achieve our goals. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank my wife, Teresa. She's been my sounding board, my rock, and my inspiration. Together we have accomplished much, but we have a long way to go. I realized quickly that we had no choice but to fix issues regarding our unhealthy enterprise funds and to address our crumbling and inefficient infrastructure. To have turned our backs on these issues would have been irresponsible and would have kept the city on shaky ground for generations to come. Raising water rates and sewer rates for customers was not a popular decision, but it was the right choice, and more importantly, it was the only responsible choice. The consequences of continuing to subsidize the enterprise fund and general fund money has long-term effects on the health of our city, and is not fair to the property owners who are then forced to subsidize a fund that is designed to be self-sufficient. Eventually, the general fund would not have been able to sustain itself, resulting in a decrease in the city's fund balance and ultimately higher property taxes in addition to increased debt payment in addition to the rate increases. In addition, an increased debt payment on the West Wastewater Reclamation Facility beginning in 2020 would mean that the city would deplete its cash reserve and property taxes would have needed to have been raised in addition to raising water rates again in a last-ditch effort to balance the budget. I am happy to report that our stated goal of financial health by 2020 is working as planned. In 2018, the water component of the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund is in the black, and we did not have to transfer money from the general fund to be solvent. What that means to you as a taxpayer is that the fund is actually self-sufficient and is being paid for by users rather than property taxes. We've also made progress in the sewer component of the enterprise fund, and although some monies were transferred from the general fund in 2018 in order to break even, the gap has been reduced dramatically over last year's budget. The solid waste disposal component was and is another area of concern and is still losing money annually, albeit at a smaller rate. Charging our customers rates that were lower than the ones that were being charged to us by the company providing the service to us was and is a bad business practice. We are addressing these issues and more through a series of business-like policies and procedural changes. Additionally, we have changed policies that will help the fund pay for itself. And last but certainly not least, the City Council updated the solid waste ordinance, and we changed the city's billing cycle, which cut the number of 60-day delinquent bills in half. Unfortunately, the sad realization is we can't raise rates, and we can't increase property taxes enough or even reduce budgets and cut services enough to fix our way out of the existing problems. It will only be through long-term managed growth that we recover and prosper as a city. In November of 2018, city residents approved an important step in that managed growth initiative. Redevelopment power will give the city the ability to increase capital investment in the city to transform tracts of land that would otherwise be undevelopable due to topography, lack of adequate city infrastructure, and other issues, and ultimately it will help create jobs. This has the possibility of moving us to the next step so far as growing the city, further lessening the tax burden on property owners and addressing our problems with infrastructure. Companies in our existing industrial park have announced plans for possible expansion, and one company, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Loico, is expanding and will create new jobs in this German-based company with its U.S. headquarters right here in Villa Rica. But once more, we face a hurdle. Our industrial park is built out for large companies looking to expand their operations along the I-20 corridor. So while our neighboring city to the south is enjoying expansion to their industrial complex, we stand by and watch. We need to expand our industrial park to possibly include a second one on the Highway 61 corridor. I-20 is a magnet for industry. Let's take advantage of that fact. We anticipate that by the end of 2019, more employment opportunities will be created in Villa Rica, bringing with it over 200 good-paying jobs. In the last 2 years, there has been more than a substantial investment in the city's industrial corridor. Many of those relocated employees will have the opportunity to live in our city, meaning continued growth in the housing market. We have already seen a renewal in this effort and have issued 240 housing permits in 2018. In 2017, that number was 50. Subdivisions with vacant, overgrown lots are being developed. Neighborhoods are becoming whole for the first time. Growth is important, but we are also making a concerted effort to enhance the historic downtown area. Once the Downtown Renaissance Plan is complete, we hope to greet citizens and visitors with a wow factor that will be the central focus of the West Georgia region. In the future, more people will choose to live in the downtown historic district. At the same time, entrepreneurs and innovators are renovating vacant rundown shops, bringing even more life to downtown and our historic district. No serious discussion about growth should be taken seriously until we address our mounting traffic problems. And any talk of growth in our area should be preceded by a comprehensive transportation plan to map out better transportation corridors, repair antiquated intersections, and address truck traffic in our neighborhoods. I have asked staff in this council to begin immediately with just such a plan before the nightmare gets worse. There is also something special going on in the heart of our city right now. The concept of a 22-mile Gold Nugget Trail was recently approved by the City Council and is a public-private partnership that will enhance our city and connect our neighborhoods from Fullerville to Bay Springs and from Harttown to Mirror Lake. Let me make one thing clear. Although I'm firmly committed to this trail system, the intent is to fund it through grants and private sources and not rob resources that are committed to addressing our needs. Providing a long-term water supply is essential to our growth and independence, but we have to be smart. I believe that in the future, cities that are water independent will be the new economic leaders in Georgia and will control their own destiny. That is why I've asked the City Council and staff to seek out alternatives to address our future water needs. What if is the beginning of many successes, and I won't rest until all the options are explored. Public safety is always a top priority. Safety of our police officers is paramount, and so too is the safety of the community they are sworn to protect. That's critical to building community trust. We have substantially increased the number of body cameras for our men and women in blue and anticipate that every patrol officer will have them within the next few months. Body cameras help keep our officers and the public safe, and it must be a priority to have them on every patrol officer in the cities. Cameras aren't a panacea, but research has shown they work, and not only to prove our officers are doing their good job, but they're also there to protect our citizens. For too long, city departments were asked to do more with less. Truth is, we've been fortunate to maintain the level of acceptable service that our residents rightfully deserve. Pay me now or pay me later has become a reality in this city. Unfortunately, our employees have provided that service with inadequate staff and less than competitive pay. In today's job market, that has to change. Other cities and counties are aggressively trying to poach our well-trained employees, leaving us the option of retraining or doing less. We need to train and retain a quality workforce in this city. In 2018, not only did we initiate the first step in pay parity for our employees, we updated the employee handbook from cover to cover for the first time in many years. In the past, starting pay and pay raises were subjective and given without a full understanding of their long-term effect on pay grades as a whole. Better pay, better accountability was the focus in 2018. We should never balance the city on the backs of our employees that are paid to serve us again. Earlier this year, the City Council approved the implementation of a pay parity study that identified pay standards for every position in the city and make our salaries competitive with surrounding jurisdictions. This year was the first of 3 years designed to make our employee wages comparable to cities around the region that are our size and offer similar services. By working with business leaders and labor groups, we have also reformed and stabilized the city's health care plan for the employees, and in doing so have saved the city close to $500,000. That's savings that we have and not some insurance company in another state. On day one, we began working to strengthen our relationships with other elected officials that are a part of the service delivery strategy to our residents. The fact that 40% of our residents live in Douglas County means that we are all VR. In 2018, the city manager and myself began attending and hosting quarterly meetings with elected officials in Douglas and Carroll County. Better communication means better service delivery and less chance of duplication of service. The lines of communication with both counties are now open. We have also strengthened our working relationship with the Carroll Chamber of Commerce and Carroll Tomorrow. Through this collaborative effort, new businesses are taking a serious look at Villa Rica. The seeds have been planted and the fruit is beginning to form. We are focusing our efforts on new jobs in Villa Rica, affordable housing for workers, and putting Villa Rica in a position to attract quality restaurants and shops. During the period of economic recovery, our city kept tax burdens as low as possible. In 2018, the City Council lowered the millage rate to its lowest point in recorded history. Our new business principle is geared more towards pay-as-you-go philosophy and not so much on the taxpayer, wherever possible. Villa Rica made it through the storm of recession and has emerged stronger and more resilient than ever before with an economy that is breaking free from the chains of boom then bust cycle. I've also got a chart on here, and I'm not going to bore y'all and go down through the chart, but I do have copies of my speech up here, and it will be on my Facebook page, and I'll email it to any of you that want it. But I have a complete list of all the projects there's 12 projects that we have going on right now. And I'm just going to tell you the names of the projects, but I'm not going to read the problems and the benefits of them. So if you want that information, I can get it to you, or you can see it on my Facebook page. Project number one is a water treatment plant upgrade. Then we also have the North Wastewater Treatment Plant, the Edge Road water line extension, sewer lift station evaluation, downtown water line extension, mini roundabout at Highway 61 and Punkintown Road, stormwater infiltration into our sanitary sewer system, downtown master plan, Mirror Lake connector route, Gold Dust master plan, second industrial park, and upgrade at the intersection of 61 and Hickory Level Road. I, for one, will not be moved. Kicking the can down the street is not an acceptable mode of operation. I will continue to do everything I can to build on our momentum and create an economy and future worthy of our people and worthy of our kids. Villa Rica will continue to lead on innovation and commerce, on doing right by our citizens, and doing our part to maintain our small town charm on improving on public safety, parks, open spaces, water supply, infrastructure, transportation, and so much more. I've never been one to back away from a challenge, and this endeavor as your mayor is no different. You elected someone to make the tough decisions and to be fair to all concerned. That's exactly what I intend to do. I spent most of my adult life listening to young people about their hopes, their dreams, and the obstacles they're working to overcome. These kids are an inspiration and a reminder of why I live in Villa Rica. So here is my message to the future Villa Ricans. We want you to stay here, raise a family here, work and play here, as well as retire here one day. The groundwork is being laid to make that dream a reality. As elected officials, if we don't do it, who will? A great city is never finished, and the end of progress is the beginning of decay. We must continue our efforts to prepare now for the growth that we all know is inevitable. Let's continue this journey together. We don't have a second to waste. Thank you. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you have the agenda before you. Do I hear a motion that we amend the agenda or approve it?
Mr. Mayor, I want to make a motion to amend the agenda, since you have my copy. I want to add an executive session for two purposes. One is to discuss real estate, and one is to discuss personnel matters.
Okay, we have an amendment to the agenda. Do I hear any others?
I also need to talk about a real estate matter. Not sure if that's the same one as yours or not.
Maybe.
So executive session for you too.
We have a motion for an amended agenda as proposed by Councilmember McDougal,
Second.
and a second. All in favor? It is unanimous. Okay. Our first item of business is the public comment section. Anyone wishing to give public comment at this time, please do so. Please state your name and address for the record, and please limit your remarks to 3 minutes.
I guess it's the time I'm here to speak to or ask the council for variance on a home that I'm starting.
Just
Is this the time for that or is this not?
No, actually, there will be an agenda item
Okay.
specifically on that point,
Okay.
at which time we'll call you.
Wesley Whitener, 635 South Street. This month I'm talking about a situation regarding my landlady's property, where people are subject to leaky roofs that are, has dangers like a property that I know of on the corner of West Wilson and Westview Drive happened. Several years ago, y'all had commercial properties roof fall in. New owner now is Humberto at Los Cobras. Two ladies owned the commercial property and the residential property right close to each other, and my landlady's property is in the same condition, with its roof about to fall in. I just need a resolution to it. Thank you.
thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is Melissa Hollander. I live at 119 Reed Plantation Drive. have a sense of deja vu because I was here this past year in January also, sort of saying similar things to you, speaking about animal ordinances and inhumane conditions of animals in Carroll County. I'm very glad to hear the information you had given us in the beginning, Mayor Reese, and that 40% of our city is in Douglas County. Well, those 40% of those citizens have better animal ordinances than the 60% in Carroll County. This past year, I've been working with Councilman McPherson, with the Humane Society, with the head of animal control, whom that person has now gone on to a different job. There's an interim now in that position. The Humane Society has tried to do a lot of work with moving things forward. We have wordage when it comes to weather ordinances for animals, not keeping them out in terrible weather situations like tornadoes and hail, but also specific weather conditions, but also not too cold and not too hot. And so we've got some great wordage that we have on that issue, in addition to tethering and in addition to transporting animals in open air vehicles. So hopefully in February, the Carroll County Commission will get you some wordage on that. They definitely need push from the cities to be taking action on these ordinances. They do not seem very motivated. The vast majority of the population in the county is in the cities, and so I feel since we pay them to run our animal control, that we have a say of how our animals are treated in our county. So I would encourage you to support that language. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else?
Mayor, council, there are a lot more people signed up to speak than have spoken so far. I am here to speak in relation to the request for variance to reduce the side setback requirement at 113 Legacy Drive. Would you prefer that I delay my remarks until the actual item comes?
Yes.
All right, well, sorry to take up your time. Okay, I'll just wait until then.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? A lot of people signed up. Okay.
Chickened out.
Seeing none, we will revert back to the council and to council updates. Are there any council updates?
Well, this concerns more than Ward 3, but in regards to animal control ordinance and that sort of thing, the county will be sending information to all of the city government officials to get our input, because they do run animal control for all the cities within the county of Carroll County. And so they will be asking for our advice. If you have opinions on that, then it would be a good idea to contact your county commissioner, the new one is Clint Chance, or any of the other county commissioners. And in this case, even any of us, if you live in our ward or don't live in our ward, because we are being asked for input on what changes will be made. The only other thing I wanted to mention is something I actually regret. And, you know, every now and then you vote on something, you think about it twice, and, you know, we're good about saying things that we're proud of, and every now and then I go, dang, I wish I would have done that a little different. And it may not seem like a big deal, but we have added an additional building beyond City Hall for customer service, and we needed steps between there, and we needed a sign. And to be honest, we voted, and we don't have to, because the city manager actually has $10,000 discretionary spending, as we heard. But I personally regret the vote that allowed $10,000 being spent on a sign, because we have some things around the city that are more pertinent, that at this point we're not keeping up with. And that's all I have to say on that.
Okay. Anybody else? I would just mention that at our next meeting that we will be electing a mayor pro tem for 2019. And also I want council to be thinking about their appointments to the different committees that we have. Get with Elisa and she can give you that list. If you want to be removed from a committee or you would like to be on a different committee, please let Elisa know and she'll pass that on to me and we will take up that business at the next council meeting. So if there's no other business, we will move on to tab B, which is governing body. And council members, you have before you the minutes of the December 11th, 2018 meeting. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at those, and if so, I would entertain a motion to either amend or approve.
I want to make a motion. You want to make that motion?
Well, I move that we accept it, but there's no corrections, and there's corrections.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. All right, tab C, community development, Bobby Elliott.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We have two alcoholic beverage license applications on tonight's agenda. First one is ABL-01-19. It's an application for wine, malt beverages, and distilled spirits, pouring license for Double Dip LLC, doing business as Jefferson's of Villa Rica. The licensee is David Carula, 214 Ward Circle, Suite 1200, Brentwood, Tennessee, 37027. Location of the restaurant is 750 West Bankhead Highway, land lot 157, 6th District, Carroll County, Ward 5. Zoning is general commercial, and everybody knows there's a restaurant there. The applicant has complied with the ordinance with regard to legal notification requirements, and it has successfully passed a background check conducted by the Villa Rica Police Department. Also, there are no location restrictions that would hinder the issuance of this license. Staff recommends approval. This is a change of ownership, new license.
Is the applicant present?
The applicant is present, yes,
If you
sir.
would come forward, sir, at this time. State your name and address for the record.
I am Nick Carula. I'm David's brother, twin brother. My address is 3009 White Park Drive, Nashville, Tennessee, 37211.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? David, you want to read our disclaimer?
Yeah, I will.
Yes, sir.
And I'm sure that by this time you have read through the city's alcohol ordinance and are familiar with the city's alcohol ordinance. And from looking at that, you've seen that there is an age limit to serve alcohol in the city of Villa Rica, and we're very particular and strict about enforcing that ordinance to the extent that our city police department routinely does run operations to see if we can find anybody is violating that ordinance. We're taking it that you understand that and that you will make sure that you instruct all of your employees that they're subject to getting in serious trouble if they violate that also.
Yes, sir, absolutely. We take that very seriously. We actually do a third-party audit. We are part of the BARS program, so every month we do a self-audit where somebody comes in. I don't even know when they come in. They just show up, and we get a report whether we get they basically take a green card or a red card, and if they get a red card, that means they didn't check the ID, and we have to terminate that employee. To this date, and we've been green so far in Villa Rica. We've actually been green in the entire state of Georgia so far. So that's 2 years we've been part of that program so far.
Good.
I always drive this point home, and I want to drive it home with you as well.
Yes, sir.
We had a young lady from our community 3 or 4 years ago that purchased alcohol underage in nearby, surrounding county. She was involved in an accident, lost her life as a result of that. So I take it very seriously. That family was very close to the recreation department family, and so I want you to remember that and tell your staff that as well. We don't want to lose any young underage kids in this city because of that. So if there's any question, I don't mind if you card me. In fact, that kind of makes me feel a little better. So.
Absolutely, no, I appreciate you saying that. I'm honestly, I couldn't agree more. And saying things like that and driving that home to the staff, I do think is important. It's kind of a scare tactic in some ways, but it's because it's real. I mean, it just happens.
If it scares a teenager into saving a life, then it's worth
it.
Every minute of it.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Any other questions of the applicant? Okay. You can be seated, sir.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
This is a public hearing, so we'll open it up for public. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this, please do so at this time. Please state your name and address for the record, and please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Seeing none, it will revert back to the council for action.
I'll make a motion we approve the alcoholic beverage application for Double Dip LLC, Jeffersons of Villa Rica, located 750 West Bankhead Highway.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? All opposed? 3-1. Item 2.
Mr. Mayor, the second one's ABL-02-19. It's a retail package malt beverage and wine application for Shaheen Corporation LLC, doing business as Villa Rica Food Mart, located at 820 Dallas Highway, landlocked 193, 6th District, Carroll County, Ward 3. The licensee is Anj Ajmal, 86 Lanier Court, Hiram, Georgia, 30141. The applicant has complied with all our ordinance with regard to legal notification requirements and has successfully passed the background check conducted by the Villa Rica Police Department. Also, there are no location restrictions that would hinder the issuance of this license. Staff also recommends approval. This is also a change of ownership.
Okay. Any questions of staff? Is the applicant present? Please come forward, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Ansajmo, and I live in 86 Linear Court, Hiram, Georgia, 30141.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant?
Yeah. Sir, I would ask you the same question I did of the last applicant, and that is that you've read the city's ordinances, and you understand that our law is that anyone who has served alcohol in the city must be of legal age.
Yes, I do, and also we have a cash register. We can't bring a beer unless you verify the ID. And every time we sell beer, we have to make sure the ID is correct, and when you enter, it let you know that you can sell it or you cannot sell.
Okay. And you understand also that occasionally there will be somebody coming in to buy beer that the police department has asked to come in and try beer, to buy beer.
Definitely. We have like every week, you can say, I mean, people keep trying and they're standing outside the stores, giving money to different person, go get it for us.
Right.
But no, totally.
Okay. And I won't repeat the mayor's statement, but you understand also why we're so strict about it.
Definitely.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
All right. This is the public comments portion of this hearing, so anyone wishing to speak for or against this, please do so at this time. Okay, seeing none, it will revert back to the council.
I'd make a motion to approve the alcoholic beverage application for Shaheen Corp. LLC, doing business as Villa Rica Food Mart, located at 820 Dallas Highway, Villa Rica.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? 3-1. Item number 3.
Mr. Mayor, we have a variance, VA-01-18, to reduce the side setback requirements at 113 Legacy Drive, Villa Rica, Georgia. The applicant is Jody Willis, 2273 Carrollton, Villa Rica Highway, Villa Rica, Georgia, 30180. The applicant has requested a variance to reduce the north side setback from 20 feet to 16 feet for the construction of a single-family home. The applicant has begun construction of the home inside the required side yard setback. At this time, Mayor, I want to give just a little bit of a background on how this came about. This building permit, I should have looked up the date when it was issued, but sometime probably mid-November of last year. We had a resident to come in our office that strongly suggested to us that the house location was too close to the side setback line, and was emphatic about it. So we contacted Mr. Willis and had him verify with his surveyor exactly where the footprint was on the lot. Indeed, it was encroaching, like 16 feet on one corner and 17 feet on the other. Normally, our inspectors will look for this kind of stuff, but they don't typically take a tape measure and measure it. The corner pins on this specific lot were not visible, so when a 20-foot setback, I mean, you got to be pretty good to be able to say, "Whew, that's at 19 feet," or "That's at 18 feet," just with the eye. So, hence, we had him verify it. Once it was determined that the encroachment was indeed that way, we had him apply for a variance. With the code, that's the only recourse we have. Hence, the application's here tonight. We reviewed the application, and as a staff person, we chain ourselves to our code. And our code states pretty much variances are typically granted for exceptional circumstances such as topography, lot shape or size, any irregularities with the lot. In this case, the lot pretty much flat, level, clean. Basically, there was not a hardship associated with the lot properties. In this case, the lot meets the requirements, and a self-imposed hardship doesn't fit our code. Hence, that's why we recommend denial based on that. We have to chain ourselves to that. So that's where we are with that. I'll be glad to answer any questions from a staff's perspective.
Bob, you said the building permit was issued in November.
Yeah.
On the building permit, were the setback lines indicated?
The state of Georgia now, with the new NPDES rules, require all single-family new building permits to have a site plan that's turned into us that we have to approve and stamp, that actually shows not only the lot, but all the side setbacks, front and rear setbacks, but it actually has to have the exact footprint of the house plan that's selected to go on this lot. And a copy of that is given to every builder with their permit. And all the setbacks are usually, Peggy highlights all those. And I do know that Mr. Willis called Peggy with a question about the side setback. And she indicated that she thought it was 5 feet. It is 5 feet in the two other developments that he's building in right now, but it's not in this one. This is a 20-foot setback. So
are you saying, did we give something inaccurate information?
I'm not saying she did that or she didn't do it, but the fact is the site plan that's approved and stamped that goes with the permit has all the correct information on it.
Okay, so in layman's terms, there's supposed to be a 20-foot setback. This house was built. It's at 16 instead of 20. It's not on somebody else's property, but it's encroaching on the space that's supposed to be between, so there's not as much space now between them.
It's too close to the property line, yes.
And if this were, I mean, I'm looking just at everything we've been given. So either it's approved or it's not approved. And the only thing I can think of is if it's denied, is this house supposed to be torn down and rebuilt 4 feet different? I haven't seen any other option. I'm just.
Based on the status of the house that's on the lot, as the department head, my perspective is, you know, raising the house is not practical. It's just not. And, you know, Mr. Carter and I discussed it, and, you know, as a staff person, I can't recommend approval when the code says there's not a hardship listed, you know, that our code quantifies it. But I will say this, what we've done in lieu of this is we've put another requirement in place from our staff's perspective that we're now requiring what we call a box check. In other words, when a building permit is issued, the builder goes to form up his footprint. Once that's done, he has to get a surveyor to certify and stamp that it is in compliance with all setbacks related to the lot. So.
Was this plan surveyed?
Well, now, it was not done prior to this, because we've implemented it since this application was filed.
This is a new procedure you've implemented.
Yes,
That's
it
great.
is, yes.
So when you found out that things weren't right, were they asked to stop until you get it
Yes.
straight?
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
But that wasn't done.
Yes, ma'am, it was. We issued a stop work order on the lot immediately when we got Mr. Willis's surveyor's verification that encroachment had occurred.
But the house was built then.
So that's why we are looking at a variance here.
And so there's no way, somebody messed up. Okay, somebody messed up, whether it's accidental or whatever, most likely. But if we, say, okay, it's okay this time, but in the future, gosh, we can't afford for this to happen again, so you've put in some we have nothing in our code that allows us to fine or have some sort of penalty for a screw-up or something like that. And yet, at the same time, I say to myself, I try to put myself in the place of somebody who's having a house built, who you rely on professionals to do stuff, and something's seriously wrong, and now what? You can't move in your house?
Well,
I mean,
in cities where I've worked
that'd be
before.
a hard thing to do to somebody.
There's always been a schedule, a fine schedule. If you do, strangely enough, if something falls out of the sky and we end up in this situation, you measure it based on what the schedule is, so much a foot of encroachment, so much an inch of encroachment. Ours just doesn't have it here.
So we're lacking a fine for encroachment. And we require a public hearing on this, David?
We do. I want to address that one point, though. We don't have a fine schedule tied into that, because if you did, that would just allow somebody to buy into violating the setback requirement.
Correct.
And the intent is to protect other property owners. So, I mean, that's why there's not any type of a fine penalty for this. Otherwise, you just
You build it into your budget,
yeah,
you build
yeah,
that way.
yeah, you're buying into violating the ordinance, and that's not what our ordinance is intended to be.
So you just let it ride like it is, and that's what y'all saying? I mean,
No,
it's wrong, but
Yeah.
you correct me if I'm wrong, but you've done something that's not, you've encroached on somebody, and then it's already done. So
Well,
what is you?
he hasn't encroached on anybody but the 20-foot side setback.
Well,
He's
yeah.
not on somebody
But
else's
no, I
property.
mean, there's still something that shouldn't have been somewhere, and you just let go. I mean, you can't find them, or you can't do something. Just let it ride. Is that what y'all saying?
I think we probably ought to hear from any public comments that might be here to voice an opinion one way or the other, and then we can talk about it some more after hearing.
Any more questions of staff? Okay. All right, this is a public hearing, so anybody wishing, well, let's first hear from the applicant. Let's get the applicant to come up first.
Gary Smallwood.
Wait, Gary, are you the applicant?
No. You need to
Let's get
speak-
the applicant to come up
Okay.
first. Please state your name and address for the record.
Jody Willis, I live at 2273 Carrollton Billerica Highway. And first off, apologize for this tonight. It was an honest mistake. I build in several counties around. We go from 5 to 7 to 15-foot setbacks. I never had one, it was 20. So at that point, I done what I thought was right. As Bobby said, I did call the city, but I knew she was wrong when she said 5. There ain't no blame there at all. I knew, no, that's not right. So I went to my normal 15 at that point. And Lou, he did say I have a site plan, and for some reason, it never entered my mind. It just didn't. I don't know why. But anyway, the reason we scooted that sideline anyway is a huge oak tree on the left that we were trying to protect. I don't know how old, but it's a huge, enormous tree. So I moved to the right to try to protect the tree, not to kill it. Neighbor Eddie didn't want to kill it, nor the new homeowners. So we were trying to protect the tree to get over to that side as much as possible. Have pictures if y'all like to see the tree. I don't know if it's in y'all's thing. I do have the, y'all may have most of that. I brought the letter that I gave the homeowners to sign. We also had a
I
petition.
think we have that one, Jody. Let's just,
I do have one, have pictures
not much on sharing.
You'll see some existing homes that I built there, and a lot of the homeowners are here tonight to support me. But nothing was done intentionally to harm, and I don't feel that we've affected anyone's home values by who we put the home.
Any questions of the applicant?
Mr. Willis, have you, I think you just indicated you've built in this community before.
Yes.
Were the setback lines different?
They were not really applicable where I put the house. I mean, I built one corner lot for Jason here, where it said I built one for the preacher. It was just not an applicable situation. See, this one tree really was the main reason for scooting to the one side. If I centered the lot, I would have been too close to the big oak tree to kill it. So really, it wasn't an applicable situation where it determined to move one side or the other on the other lots. So, you know, all of them was beyond 15 foot, which is my mind tracking normal setbacks.
Okay, I did go out and stand on that property today, and I do recall the tree. It's
Yeah.
a little more than midway back on the
Yeah.
left-hand side.
Gets close to the back left corner of the home.
I guess I don't have any more questions
Okay.
for you.
I wanted to ask one. And, I mean, you're more familiar with this house than anybody because you've been living with this issue here.
Yeah.
Are there any other practical solutions that you have to fix the problem?
Honestly, no, with construction, it would be a major ordeal.
And again, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
Yeah.
I'm just, I haven't seen the house, so
Yeah.
I don't have a clue. You know, I can imagine situations where an encroachment like this would not be a huge deal. If you have a porch overhang or something, you know, my understanding is that you could correct that at a, you know, an expense, but not an exorbitant expense. Is this problem one that, you know, would actually require demolition of the house?
Yes. You know, we're at the sheet rock stage in the home also. It's completely roughed, insulated, and ready for drywall.
Jody, let me ask you a question. I do have a question.
Okay.
But the reason I hesitated on the question is because I haven't heard from anyone else. But let me just suggest this. I would be very hesitant to grant this type of variance because I think our building codes are so specific and we have to hold everybody to that standard. I would like to see another way to get this resolved. I wonder if there's a way for you to buy 4 feet to the right.
Well, I would buy the whole lot and double what he paid for it if he'd be willing to sell it. Then we
And
change
to
the lot.
me, I don't know if that's because I don't know.
I mean,
that
yeah, I mean,
person.
I would be willing to do that. I mean, I know what he paid for the lot, so I know I'd be willing to double the money on the lot, and then I could change the lot line to fix it.
And I just want
Build
to,
a house
I want
there.
to make sure that we explore every
Mhm.
option we have before
That's a more
we just
economical-
waive our own building codes. Okay.
Jody, have you spoke to the owner of that lot?
No, he's the one that opposed me, so we're,
So on the lot next door, there's not a house constructed on it?
mm,
Okay, so it's a vacant lot.
yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, Jody.
Thank y'all.
Okay, this time we'll open it up for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this, please do so at this time. State your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
I'm Eddie Preston. I live at 121 Legacy Drive. I'm also the original owner of the 3 lots that are in between my house and another house in question. So a couple of years ago, keep a long story short, our subdivision is a fairly new subdivision, but it's underdeveloped. So I bought the last home in the subdivision. Mr. Smallwood was building out the subdivision, and we sat with vacant lots for 10 years. Mr. Willis came into the subdivision, has done nothing but build fine homes and doubled our homeowners association fees. I mean, not our fees, but our income. So we can continue to add value in presenting a positive, diverse community in Villa Rica. So I own the 3 lots in between my house and the lot on the corner. So probably the complaining party, I sold that lot to them with a civil agreement that, hey, I just want to give you a heads up, these lots are in play. I don't think that you would want me to sell this lot and have somebody build this house right next to you. Okay. I said, but being in mind, the other 2 lots are in play. So after I saw what Mr. Willis brought to the community, the types of homes, the types of families who he's bringing to the community, I reluctantly agreed to sell the lot in question to Mr. Willis with a gentleman's agreement that he would not cut down that oak tree that we were so fond of. Okay? And Mr. Willis is not defending himself adequately. He's saying he chose not to do it. Well, he certainly would not have chosen to do it, but also he's covering for me who asked him not to do that, to do everything within his power and control. Because we value houses in the community, we value families in the communities, but we also value the public view of the community. And this tree, I don't know how old it is, but it's hundreds of years old. And to my understanding, it's partially influenced the mistake that was made, although unintentional. But everything else that I've come into agreement with Mr. Willis, he's done nothing but keep his word. He's done nothing but, honor everything he could to be a part of the community. And for everybody else that I've spoken with, nobody would have a problem bringing another fine family into the community. I understand this is a family that's being challenged with, even raising the money, to be able to get into a home in this community. And I would just think it was unfair to that family to deny them for something nearly the size of this podium, to deny them the act and the value of being able to move into our community. So I'm definitely in favor of the variance grant, and I just wanted my voice to be heard.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Gary Smallwood. I represent the Homeowners Association. I have purchased that subdivision back in 2005, and I've been mostly the owner of it for, until the crash. I just have one question for you. This situation was known about long before the house was ever constructed. The situation was known about before the footings were poured. The person that was requesting that, the work order be placed, stop work order be placed, he came to my house and said there was an issue with the line. I just would like to know why it went so far before it was ever brought to the attention of the city.
Mr. Smallwood, just as the parliamentarian up here, I would tell you that it's probably inappropriate to address questions to members of the crowd. You just got to address them, and I understand what
Okay,
you're doing,
all right.
but it's not appropriate to ask questions of
I'm
people in the
sorry.
audience.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Not good at doing this.
I understand.
So you got my questions.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Reese, City Council. My name's Jerry Boutwell. I've lived at 2267 Carrollton Villa Rica Highway for over 50 years. So I've been a long-time resident of Villa Rica and the county. I pay taxes in the city of Villa Rica, and I pay taxes in the county, of course. I own property at the subdivision, Legacy Lake subdivision now, and I have sold property there in the past. I don't feel that it would harm my property at all to grant Mr. Willis's variance request. I don't think it would hurt any of them's property. We're talking about this much probably. So I'm respectfully requesting that you vote yes on the variance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Daniel McDonald. I live at 2283 Carrollton Villa Rica Highway. I also have property in Villa Rica, and I pay taxes in Villa Rica and the county of Carroll. I worked with Mr. Willis building this house, and I just wanted to show support and recommending that you do approve this variance for multiple reasons, for their home values, but also for jobs. Mr. Willis pays me, and it would be a very big economic hit to his family and my family, and the family moving in to the house, to destroy the house and rebuild it, or worst case scenario, have a vacant lot and these people move to a different county. Mr. Mayor, you were talking about how many homes have grown in the past few years in Villa Rica. A lot of those homes were built by Mr. Willis, probably the majority of them. So I just think that, showing good faith in a good builder that's brought a lot of money and families into this area is kind of the right thing to do, I guess. I do want to second that we did, Mr. Willis and I did question the city about their 5 foot when we did call them. Called them about the line and said they said their setbacks were 5 feet. Mr. Willis and I did say, I do think that's wrong. We both disagreed with that. We asked them again, are you sure 5 feet? And she said, yes, 5 feet. We said, no, we don't think that's right. We're going to set it at our normal setbacks, which is 15 feet. So we did what we thought was right and what we normally do, building most of the homes here in Villa Rica. So come to find out, it is 20, and so we're really talking about a mistake of 3 feet and 11 inches. I just think it's a little silly for that, but that's my opinion. So I am in favor. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, my name is Tom Flowers. I live at 3107 Golfers Way. I'm a resident, property owner, and taxpayer in Villa Rica. And I'm also on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I apologize. I really hadn't made up my mind to speak tonight until I got here, but you guys have all seen me in a coat and tie before. Anyway. I probably have personally built over 300 houses back in my youth, and assisted with probably another 1,000. Then I got into banking in real estate finance, and I probably financed, I don't know what the number is, tens of thousands of units like this, and financed subdivisions of this type all over the country. So this is not my first dance when it comes to things that have been messed up somehow along the line in construction, especially residential construction. So there are some things, I don't know whether they're practical or even considered, but in many cases, and I couldn't tell from the photos whether this was a slab or a crawl space. Now, of course, the garage is on a slab probably, but it is possible to jack up a house and move it 4 or 5 feet. It's possible to jack up a house and move it 100 miles and then reconstruct it absolutely perfectly. And I can tell you that because I've financed some of those. I can show you the houses in Augusta that were moved and reconstructed. So it is inconvenient for a builder who's not planned on that, especially in price ranges where the prices are a little lower. But, you know, for all of us, and I appreciate Mr. Elliott, what he was saying earlier about our codes, but, you know, so much of business life and legal matters, you know, comes down to say what you mean what you say, and then do what you said. And building a house is not something to be taken lightly. Yes, after 100 houses, you kind of get the feeling that, oh, I know what I'm doing, you know, and I don't have to be quite so particular perhaps, or it'll be okay. But I financed houses in many a jurisdiction where they required foundation surveys before they would allow construction to proceed beyond that point. And you had to have a certified plat, excuse me, plot plan done by a registered engineer or surveyor to prove that the foundation was not encroaching on any side or front or rear setbacks or on any property lines either, for that matter. So there are things, and I didn't hear whether any of those were or had been considered, other things that can be done in a situation like this. Possibility of purchasing 4 or 5 feet off of lot 20, which is adjacent on that side where the existing dwelling under construction has been constructed. So there are things that possibly could be made or done, and I hadn't heard any remarks made about whether any of these things have been considered or attempted. And I think before just saying, oh, geez, you didn't do your job right, and nothing against the builder or anybody else involved in this, but rather than us as a city saying, well, whoopsie, no sweat, slipsies, we'll do it better next time, right? I think that there needs to be an exploration of all of the avenues that might be available, and that in the absence of there's no fine built into our code, but there has to be some other consideration for allowing a violation of our code to go forward. I mean, if you go back and look at our history, we can point to time after time when we've just said, yeah, okay, we'll let that slide. Somebody in the future will deal with that, perhaps to the tune of millions of dollars. Not mentioning anything specific, of course, but just think about that next time you draw a glass of water from your tap or visit the restroom. But I think that everyone should be who holds themselves out to be professional. And here again, I'm not trying to be personally critical of any individual, but we all have professional standards that we have to meet. And if you don't meet those, then there should be a genuine good faith effort to do any and all of the things that are possible to rectify that, rather than just expecting that the local municipality will give a kind of a King's X, okay, no sweat, we'll let it slide just because we're good guys and that's what everybody expects us to do. Okay, thanks.
Thanks,
I don't
sir.
have any other questions or comments.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Pass her the microphone.
We could be here a while. I just say I'm the pastor at First Baptist Church of Villa Rica. I live at 112 Legacy Drive, directly across the street from this piece of property. Jody built my house that I live in currently, just moved in last year. Beautiful location, overlooking that lake. It's a sweet little spot. Never in a million years thought I'd be there, but here we are. I left Bremen to move to Villa Rica because I wanted to be part of the community, and I love where we are. And so the houses, I think we have to be practical, right? So you're talking about something about the size of this podium has been mentioned, right? The whole deal is value of property. That's all we're talking about is value of property. I can promise you that oak tree probably brings more value to the property than these 3 feet. So I'm saying the houses are beautiful. They're well built. Jody does a great job, and his integrity is great. Do a great job for me and the others in the neighborhood. So I say, my house in Bremen, the guy built their house literally on my lot, and we had to have a variance after it was done. It was like that, just neighbors being neighbors. So the property looks fine, doesn't change anything. It looks good. It's gonna look great when the house is finished. And so my recommendation is it moves forward past, let variance go, because it doesn't change the value of the property. I don't see how it could. I think that oak tree probably brings more value than the 3 feet to the right. Just my thoughts on it, and I'll pray for all of you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Can I have 30 seconds more?
Sure.
Probably some will take more than that. I also forgot to ask or inquire whether that property is on city water and sewer or municipal water and sewer, or is it on a septic tank? The size of the lot on the plat that I saw is 55 hundredths of an acre. And so we've got to be mindful of the fact that that is almost the very bare minimum that you can have and put a septic tank on that property for a single-family dwelling. And so movements to it or allowances, different things of that nature, could have an effect with the Department of Health and other regulations because we're right on the limits for that. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
My foot fell asleep here. Anyway, Mayor Reese, council, I'm actually the owner of the lot in question.
Could you state your name and address?
Robert Custer, 198 Daniel Road, Villa Rica.
Thank you, sir.
And all arguments presented tonight for the property, as far as the variance for it, against it, are all valid arguments. What I'm looking at here is I'm going to go with what Mr. Smallwood had presented. I did contact Mr. Smallwood and informed him of the issue. Being the president, being the president of the Homeowners Association.
Maybe about 2
Okay.
inches.
Earlier, prior to contacting him, I had made an attempt to call Mr. Willis to inform him that I had suspected that the property line was not in compliance. I believe the phone call followed up by Mr. Smallwood. At that point, Mr. Willis did contact me via phone, and we did discuss this property line. And during that phone call, it's not exactly a pleasant phone call. It was met with a lot of hostility and a lot of belligerence. Mr. Willis was privy to the fact that this was in question. I don't see how this could have been an honest mistake. With all of that said, I do agree, having met the homeowners for this property, I do not want to see them put out. I have met them, they are very nice people, and they would be a great addition to the neighborhood, which is what we're looking for, to all be neighbors. Where I have my issues was with the fact that I did make all attempts to get this rectified prior to the house being built. And my only recourse at this point here was contacting the city with Mr. Elliott at that point where things proceeded. The trees that are in question here, everybody is looking at here, in order to make way for that house, there was a second oak tree on that. And my wife literally cried when that tree went down to put that house in. The other tree in question, we're very happy in the fact that it is being preserved. It is a very big asset to the neighborhood, and the property that we purchased from Mr. Preston contains a tree that we're currently spending a lot of money to try and save. It had a tree next to it of similar size and was taken over by the carpenter ants. So with this said, it is a very nice neighborhood. And with the folks in it, I do not understand why that extending the hand to discuss this issue, why no discussion would take place. I did everything I could to make this happen. With the issue of talking about compensation against it or even purchasing my lot, that's out of the question. We purchased that lot because we value our space. And with that being said, here is that encroachment right there, to some people might represent a small amount of 4 foot, but it does encroach the house closer to the space that we bought to continue to have as much space that we would like to. We would like to.
Back up from the mic. It's over.
Back away.
We would like to have. So, but in the interest of it all, I would like to see exactly what was proposed
Back off a little bit.
to bring this into something that is amenable to all parties without having to remove the house. And discussion would be entertained by me with that. But the purchase of the property,
You're too close to the mic.
okay,
Back up.
purchase of the property,
Back up.
purchase of the property.
Mr. Custer, just, let me ask you a question.
It's got a short in it also.
Yeah.
It's not him.
It may not be just him, but I don't see that happen very often, so maybe if you'll stay back just about 5 or 6 inches, because we can hear you pretty good. My question to you, though, is a simple one. Are you willing to endorse this variance tonight? For all the reasons you stated, the new family, any of the reasons that you thought, the tree, you wanted the tree saved anyway, I think it's important that if you are willing, as the affected, with all due respect, the folks who said they don't believe it affects their property, it's not their property. I'm asking you if you could support this variance.
I would have to agree with Mr. Elliott. The fact is, the city has its ordinances in place, and those need to be honored. It's not just one builder, it could be 2 builders, 3 builders, 4 builders. And if you come down to it, as far as what you said, if this is going to be black and white, and then after all efforts made by myself to see that this line could be corrected prior to the construction, then I would have to go with denial.
Did you actually go to the city before the construction started and talk to Bobby about it?
I had actually gone to Mr. Willis and talked to him. He had
I'm talking
his.
about the city.
No, I did not. I was unaware that the city did not require a surveyed plat at that time for the house location.
It almost seemed like, I'm going to follow up on Councilmember McDougal's comments, because it seemed like you were saying that you would like to find an amicable solution to this problem. Understand that you don't want to sell the lot. That's certainly your right, but it almost sounded like you were trying to come to some amicable decision, not because of Mr. Willis, but because of the family that you said that you wanted to see move into the neighborhood.
I personally don't like to see anybody harmed by this, and that's just my nature. I am out here just trying to figure out a solution to this through the builder here, who originally did not want to, and to this date has not contacted me about even purchasing the property to solve this issue.
There's no issue that perhaps things got out of hand between you and Mr. Willis, and I regret that on both sides. What I'm trying to do, and what Councilmember McDougal was trying to do, you're the person that's most affected by this variance.
Correct.
So you would have a lot of weight with this council, in my opinion, if you said, Mr. Willis messed up, or whatever you want to say, but I'm willing to work with him because this family would be good for the neighborhood. I want to save this tree. Then I think that would carry a lot of weight with this council. So if you are so inclined to do so, I think that is a solution possibly to this problem.
And I would agree with you, Mr. Mayor. That's exactly the path I would like to go down versus seeing that this family being displaced from their home and the fact that the house would have to be removed.
Thank you, sir. David, do you want to get clarity? Is that?
Yeah, I understand that. I got a question. Who owns the house that's actually on lot 21 now? Which is, pardon? 21, which is on the other side of his lot. There appears to be a house there.
That's my residence.
So you live in the farmhouse, and
Yes,
you've
sir.
got the empty lot between you and the farmhouse?
Correct.
That's right. Okay, so is there a plan to actually build a house on Lot 20?
Right now, we have no plans of building a house, but that does not mean that down the road, this could be a possibility.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that I understand so that I can help formulate some type of resolution that y'all have discussed. So you live on Lot 21, there's an empty lot at Lot 20, and then we have the encroaching house on Lot 19 that's encroached over 4 feet. Because I came into believing that the house that you were living in was actually on the lot next door, Lot 20, so that was a misunderstanding in the, in evaluating this. So, Ben, and you've said that you're willing to discuss coming to some type of solution that would allow you to agree to the grant of the variance.
I would, and I believe that is actually picking up the slack where we don't have, and I have to agree with the fine aspects of things here. Years ago, I've been in the building trades here, and that is exactly what will happen with a lot of builders. They will pay the fine and let it happen. And so with not having anything in place, this is what what was proposed earlier, to come to an amicable agreement here and get this resolved.
And I thank you for that, sir.
Yeah, and to achieve that, I mean,
Yeah.
we need to try and come
What
up with a
is
way to
that?
achieve
What is
that.
that amicable
What-
agreement?
What I'm going to suggest to you as a way to do it, because I don't think you can do it right here on the spot, I would say that, based on everything I've heard, you know, I can foresee that the council may be leaning in a particular direction, but I think it would be appropriate to simply table it for some short period of time to give an opportunity for there to be that discussion to see if we can come to an amicable resolution of it.
David?
And you need to participate in that
David?
because,
Would a motion be appropriate now? At
Yeah,
this stage? Because I was going to suggest to Mr. Custer, I'm
Custer.
sorry, I don't know you. And just real quick, Gary, does he live in your old house? Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that. It would be hard for me to see that this council would be willing to require Mr. Willis to tear that house down. But if you're willing to have a discussion with him and try to resolve this amicably, I think this council would probably be willing to table this for
Well-
some period of time to allow that to happen. But just with your knowledge of knowing that the alternative is not going to be that he just simply has to tear that house down, I don't see that happening.
Well, that's why we're here today is what my
Right, but we only have
understanding
two
is.
options. We can either vote yes or no on this, which it won't be heard again for a year, or we can table it and come back and.
You realize that we're not having but one meeting in this month, that the second meeting was canceled, and there's a family out there waiting to move into their home, and it's already been
Well-
delayed several weeks.
And I
And I
get
think
that.
that's bad. We're treating a family badly, and I represent that family in my ward. So I don't particularly like that solution. I think it was a careless mistake on the part of the builder. He didn't verify his line and his distances. He misunderstood what the city fed him information. And is this public hearing, is it still going on, David?
the public hearing, it hasn't been closed out
No,
yet,
we're just here
but you
from-
still have the right to
Let's
discuss
finish the
it.
public hearing before we move forward then.
Yeah, we're hearing from the gentleman, and anybody else? Any questions of this, since this is the neighbor? Okay.
No, I would just say that I would not be inclined to have someone tear down their house after all this. Rules are rules, but I think we have to remember that there's humans in this situation. If we do end up tabling, I would love if something amicable could be worked out, that's great. But putting myself or anybody else in the position of the people waiting to get in a home and everything, I would be willing, I've already canceled most of my vacation for January. Things have just occurred in our family. That's the way it happened. I would be more than willing to attend a special called meeting if we need to come back to resolve this in order not to delay somebody, because we usually have 2 meetings a month now. We're only having one. If we had to have another meeting to fix this, because I cannot fathom putting this off till February, what is it, 12?
Yeah, I think that's unfair to the
I
family.
think that's unfair to the people that are waiting for a decision.
And let's continue the public comments portion of it, and then when it comes back to the council, we can have that
Okay.
discussion.
And I would like to make one more comment here. Am I in your ward, Mr. Carter?
Yes, you are.
You also represent me.
You better believe it. I represent all the people, and I take all that into consideration.
Thank you for your time here, and hopefully we'll get this worked.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I just have one statement. The McCraes that are going to be purchasing the house, they've had to postpone everything. They put their house, they sold their house. They have January the 14th to get out of their home. They're gonna have to rent something. So I'd just like for y'all to keep that in mind too.
Thank you, sir. Jody?
Back when he said that, when he contacted us, that's the moment we contacted the city. It didn't and I don't think I spoke with him personally. We did have a phone conversation, but I think Gary contacted me and said that there's some line issues. That's the moment when I called the city and said, hey, that's the moment we moved forward and said, okay, we know it ain't 5, we assume it's 15. So to answer that was answered in that form of fashion. It wasn't, I don't care what you say, and kind of comment deal.
Okay.
We did adhere and do what we thought was the right thing at that point.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Hey, I'm Sharon Willis. I live at 2273 Carrollton Villarica Highway. I respectfully request that you do not table this. It doesn't affect just Brett and Anna, who are very good people right here. It affects me. I'm Jody's wife. You know, kids have to eat. Tuition's got to be paid. Our workers, we've had to still pay them, but they're not working because this has already been since, when was it, December? And even another 2 weeks or another month, it's not just going to affect Brett and Anna, it's going to affect several people, including myself. So I'm concerned about myself too, just like anybody else would be. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Flowers, it's going to be inappropriate to come back up here a
Yeah.
third time.
Yeah, we'll just.
Well, there's another issue with the property.
It's still inappropriate to come back a third time.
All right, there's a problem with the chain of title, though, I'll tell you.
Anybody else? Okay. This will close the public comments portion of the meeting and revert back to the council for discussion.
Okay, I'm gonna take the point on this since it is my ward, and I do represent all the people, and it looks to me like it was a mistake, careless mistake, but was a mistake, and we all make them. We all make mistakes, and I don't think it's fair to the family to deprive them of their house while we sit around and try to figure out some other solution to this. I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the variance.
Second.
Have a motion to second. We'll open it for discussion. And David, I'm going to ask you a question. Would it be appropriate to amend the motion to say that we would, to add language that would ask the owner of the adjacent lot to get with Mr. Willis and to work out those details? So that we can vote on this
It's
tonight?
not inappropriate to do so, but I think timing is an issue here. Let me just throw out a suggestion here, because I don't know that this can be solved quickly or not, but we got some other stuff on our agenda tonight. Why don't you just table it for the moment? Let these two gentlemen talk for a minute, and, maybe I'd ask Mr. Newsom, my assistant, to sit with them to talk just about it, to see if there's any chance they could resolve it and come back at the conclusion of our meeting and vote. That way that we've at least afforded them the opportunity to talk with each other, hopefully in a respectful manner, to try and come to some type of resolution, because really what we're talking about is, and I understand that the gentleman doesn't want to sell his lot, but if there's not going to be a house built on this lot, we're talking about coming up with some resolution of 4 feet of property. You would hope reasonable people could come up with a resolution of that. So I think that would be appropriate to just table it for, not for any time other than the rest of this meeting, and come back at the end of the meeting and vote on it, on the motion that's pending.
Would you amend your motion, council member?
I'll amend it to have a delay in it, but keeping in mind that we have a motion in play with a second, that we will vote when we come back.
Well, I would just add, while you got that motion out there, that I am not inclined to vote in favor of this variance. And if it fails tonight, you won't come back for a year. Am I right, David?
Correct.
I would encourage that that discussion take place.
So you are rescinding your motion, is that correct?
No, I think the motion still stands, and it's just we're not voting on it yet, and you haven't closed off the debate on it. We'll let them talk, and then we'll come back and finish that business, finish the debate, and vote.
And did you say you were going to be in that meeting?
I'm going to ask Sam Newsom to sit in on it. I suspect I'm going to be involved in
I
other
heard you
parts
say
of this
somebody
meeting.
sit on it. I wasn't heard you.
I think that's a
Okay.
great idea.
So is that amenable with the council?
It's amenable with me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, could I get 5 minutes to be in this meeting? I think I have a solution for the,
Absolutely.
Please do.
Please do so.
you guys can move forward if you need to.
We can skip over to some other stuff.
Sure.
Do we even have an officer going? I don't think it's going to be that bad. Maybe not.
It might be.
Okay, item number 4, since you left, who's going to present?
Who's going to do the garbage truck?
I saw Janet raise her hand.
All right, Main Street, economic development.
All right, let's move on to tab D, economic development. Janet, you're on.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The first agenda item I have is the Main Street Advisory Board reappointments. We are a 7-member Main Street Advisory Board appointed by the City Council, and we work to promote and create thriving central business district in downtown Villa Rica, along with primary entrance corridors into the central downtown business district. Our term is 2 years, and we have 7 members. The Main Street Advisory Board currently has 4 members whose terms are expired. Melissa Garrett, 12/31/2018. Rhonda McCullers, same date. Stephanie Warmoth, same date. Carolyn Cox, same date. At the regular meeting of the Main Street Advisory Board in December, the board unanimously voted to reappoint Melissa Garrett, Rhonda McCullers, Stephanie Warmoth, and Carolyn Cox to another 2-year term. Make a motion to reappoint Melissa Garrett, Rhonda McCullers, Stephanie Warmoth.
You can't actually make
Oh, sorry. You guys make the motion. I'll just stand.
I'll make a motion to reappoint Melissa Garrett, Rhonda McCullers.
I'm trying to speed up this meeting.
She did a better job, Gil.
All to full terms expiring 12/31/2020.
Second motion.
I have a motion and a second. Did you get that, Elisa? Okay. Any discussion? That was a good try, though.
I know,
I've
I
never seen a
tried.
department head actually
I
make a
tried.
motion, but that would be
Talking
new.
about trying to ram through a
Good job,
decision.
Tom.
You ought to be running for election, you know, there's one coming up.
Okay, I'll have a
Duly
motion.
noted, sir.
Motion?
And a second.
All in favor?
That's the
It is
second time
unanimous.
somebody's tried.
I know it is the second.
Neither one of them worked.
I know.
I'm just making sure you guys
And I
are
think
paying
Gil's on them
attention.
both times. Okay, item number 2.
I was just making sure y'all are paying attention. The second agenda item is the Downtown Development Authority appointments. The terms of the 3 members of the DDA that have expired were Carl Peabody, 4/1/218, Ryan Clark, 4/1/218, Charlene Gilmore, 5/13/218. Charlene is not seeking reappointment. Brian White resigned his seat, and Ryan Clark's expired 12/31/2018. The DDA met at their regular meeting on December 17th, and they had created a subcommittee. The subcommittee recommended the appointment of Matthew Montahan to a 6-month term ending 7/12/2019. the appointment of Michael Young to a full term, which is 4 years, 5/13/2022, and the DDA board unanimously voted in favor of the subcommittee's decision. The city council, of course, voted in the December meeting to reappoint Carl Peabody as well as Ryan Clark to full terms ending 4/1/2022. Staff recommends the appointing Matthew Montahan to a 6-month term expiring 4/1/22 and adding Michael Young to a full term expiring 5/13/2022.
Questions? I would entertain a
David, I would
motion.
just ask a question regarding Matthew Montahan. He has recently, and subsequent to this recommendation, he has qualified to run in an election. I know that alone doesn't disqualify him from this appointment. However, that election is going to be held in late March, and at that point, my understanding is if he were to win, he would need to resign
That's correct.
immediately.
Yes. You can't serve on that board as a member of the council.
Is there an alternative recommendation?
We would have to go back to the DDA board for that.
Okay, well, we don't have time for that tonight. I make a motion to appoint Matthew Montahan to a 6-month term expiring on 7/12/2019, and appoint Michael Young to a full term expiring 5/13/2022.
Second.
Have a motion, multiple seconds. All in favor? Unanimous. Item number 3.
The third item is the Mill Amphitheater rental agreement. I come to you in December to discuss. We revised it. I met with the Main Street Advisory Board in November. I came back in December and discussed the revised verbiage that we need to use. We confirmed the number of attendees that would require security, which is 200. And we also updated the verbiage, as I emailed David Macklin, that no weapons added instead of what we had in December. So the staff recommends updating the updated meal and rental agreement voted on by the Main Street Advisory Board to be approved by the City Council.
So let me get clarification, just as I mentioned back in December, I'm concerned with these additional fees and how they are paid to city staff. Are they paid by the applicant to the city staff directly?
Correct, if it's not a city event, correct. If
I
it's a city
understand,
event, we
and
pay for
that's what I understood in December. David,
Yes.
do we not have a problem with that from the standpoint of an outside entity renting a facility from the city and then paying city staff, albeit they're off duty, to work on city property? It seems to me that this money should be paid into the city and that the city would then compensate
The
these
employee.
staff members. I think that's something that needs to be looked at, and if you're not prepared to consider that tonight.
I can understand your concern. I mean, I think we could work it out so that it could be made appropriate and legal, but, I mean, I hear your concern.
I think, if
the
I
other-
may say something, I think the initial agreement with that was because when they're renting city property, i.e. tents, chairs, tables, it's city staff that needs to be handling that and not them, because it's our property, i.e. tents.
But by extension, they're continuing to do work that is in line with the
Correct.
same work they do for the city all the time.
Correct.
And I believe that there's going to be a concern with that. I'm sorry.
We'd have to be careful, though, because you don't want to put those people in the overtime category because they've showed up.
Well,
to-
what about
to-
workman's comp?
Well, that was what I was
What if they
gonna
were to
ask.
get hurt on?
Right, that's a legitimate concern
They are-
also, because the Lions Club is not going to have workers' comp covering city employees working on hauling tables.
That's right.
So the city will be on the hook if they get hurt. I think you can work it out so that they're not getting paid overtime because they are.
Do you need time to do that before we approve this? Is this something you would work out with staff? If we were to approve it, or do you want?
I think that's a legitimate concern. I don't, I don't want a city employee who's working 40 hours a week or whatever they're scheduled to do and then have to come in on Saturday because they're performing some extra work unless the city is budgeted to pay overtime for those people.
My concern was just that, and I want to hear from Chief Mansour, but the workers' comp is a concern to me. If someone else is paying, they're lifting our tables, using our equipment, something happens, either to the employee or to someone that's using the mill amphitheater. If we run over somebody's foot with the cart, who's liable, the employer or the city? And I'll bet an attorney would probably make a good case for the city because the city has deeper pockets. So those are all comments. I did a little research, and having been in recreation most of my adult life, this is the contract for the AMP down in Carrollton. And it's $400, $250 non-refundable deposit, and I think ours is going to be, what, $100?
We refund our actual deposit of $200.
You know, I just don't, two things, and the reason I even brought that up is because I don't want to make it so difficult for people that are, you know, we're talking about people, everybody from somebody wanting to have a birthday party for their kids at the mill to someone wanting to have a benefit concert. And we need to understand that. So if that's what we're going to do, we need to make sure that our price is comparable to other facilities our size. I don't want to price us out of the market, because I'd rather see someone using that amphitheater than it sitting empty down there. At the same time, I don't want the city to have to incur any more cost than they have to by having these non-city events down there. So I'm trying to strike a medium here. It occurs to me that that's going to be very cumbersome on someone, and I guess that's going to be you, to collect that money from these renters prior to and getting it to these employees, right? And that would be you.
It would concern me if they wrote checks
Right.
that ended up bouncing to these staff members. I mean, there's just, to me, there's a host of, you know, what ifs. And I'd rather us find another way to do it. David, would you like to table this?
Well, I don't know that I'd like to, but I'm willing to accept the verdict of the council.
Would that allow you, or can you do it after?
No, I can't do it during the course of this meeting here. I can't figure out that issue.
I don't mean that.
But,
I mean, could you do it, if we approve it tonight, could you then work with staff to tweak it?
Sure.
To make it
Sure.
How can we
legal
approve
and
it if we
to
don't know
cover
what
the
it
city
is?
Yeah.
After?
I'd want to talk with Tom to figure out, you know, how we could address the overtime issue, because I may be the only one that cares about that, but I think that's a big budgetary
Well,
issue.
I'm also concerned about the payment issues.
Right.
There's a host of things we're
There needs to be
concerned about.
something in there about how we're going to receive payment, how it's going to get to the employee, because I can just see employees not getting paid for several weeks by, you know, if it's not handled right. So I don't see that language in here. Chief, I want to hear from you.
The concern I have is the officers especially, and I can't speak for other city staff, I can speak for the officers. When you're dealing with overtime, they're less likely to work it than they are when it's a check or cash, because taxes are taken out of it, they have to wait on it. Plus, if they had a holiday that week or a vacation day that week, it goes to straight time. So I'm just speaking as far as the officers go. They do like it to be just the regular
I
pay
understand
and
that,
stuff
but
like that. I
let's
know.
not forget in our budget discussion, when we talked about hiring a security guard out at our parks, we talked about them having to be paid through their regular pay because they were still essentially working for the city of Villa Rica, even though it was two different jobs. One was at the park and one was at the, and David, you weighed in on this, and that's what causes this question. It's because they are still doing essentially the same job that they do on behalf of the city, on city property, and with city equipment. Now, if we were subcontracting this out, or if these people were required to bring their own folks in, that might be different.
But now, we don't have officers at every event.
No, I understand that.
This is for city workers.
You're talking
but
about
yeah,
officers,
we're
but I'm
talking
saying this
about-
also applies to
Right.
other city employees.
Correct.
Yeah, and I hear you, and I understand why they would. I got to give some thought to how we can protect the city if one of those officers trips and falls over at the mill, falls down a step and breaks his leg when he's getting paid by the line. I use the Lions Club because it's the only one I can think of. But if he trips and falls, as he's getting paid by the Lions Club, somebody's got to take care of his broken leg, and the Lions Club is not going to do it.
Well, and just, we've worked security jobs all over the place, and we don't have, you know, insurance necessarily to cover it. That's part of it. And that's why they pay us a little extra to do that, is because we're taking the risk. If I work a job for, you know, Fred's Texaco and I get hurt, the city doesn't cover me. And I know that going in, I'm working for Fred's Texaco, but I have that approved by the boss to do before I
Right.
do, or
City
they have
don't
to
own
approve it.
Fred's Texaco.
Exactly. I agree. And that's where you have to look into that part. I understand that.
Yeah, I think it deserves, before you finally approve it, give me a chance to try and figure out how we can accomplish what you want to accomplish, yet not leave the city open for the issues that have been raised.
And also, David, the liability, we talked about workers' comp, but don't forget about the one that I raised about liability as far as the consumer, the citizen. If a truck backs over a citizen and the employee's working for the Lions Club, since you used that.
Yeah, I'm a member of that, so I feel
Yeah,
like I
know,
can use it.
That's why I said that. So, you know, I want to know the answer to that too. Are they acting on, as a city employee at that point, the city, you know, we're going to get sued, or is that employee going to get sued?
Yeah. And even taking it to the birthday parties, that's even you know, if you got 20 people over there, somebody can still get hurt.
I mean, this isn't super urgent tonight, is it, Janet?
Well, we already have requests for
We've been delayed once. I know, and we've delayed it once. Now, we corrected the one thing I was concerned about which was the wording that violated permit carriers to, you know, carry their firearm or whatever. But I have just one other to add in there in case, while you're looking at all this, is that it mentions that for large events, so people need to take into consideration, I'm looking at it from the consumer standpoint, so it's $300 to rent it. Large events require 2 staff members, and I won't get into the cost, it's 4-hour minimum for the 2. I'm just wondering how we're gonna distinguish, sometimes people have events and they don't know how many people are gonna show up, and how we're gonna figure, you have to have 2 staff, or you only have to have staff, and I'm looking at for them, because to me, it matters a whole lot more if I gotta spend $100 or $220 more for the rental of a facility. So somewhere in there, we gotta figure out how what we're gonna call a large event, and how somebody knows for sure. There's been churches that have had events over there, they don't know how many people are gonna show up, so I don't know how we do that. But-
We do ask them in advance when we meet with them that question. It is a guesstimate for them because they don't know prior to. Just like the Tri Music Festival that we have out there, you know, it's their first year, they didn't know.
Yeah.
Moving forward, they kind of base their numbers as they build. So, you know.
You can work with them.
Correct. And then once we decide based upon that, then we have them sit down with the police department and go from there as far as security, size, so on and so forth. But they do pay everybody, and we've never had an issue, not to say that we wouldn't have an issue in the future, but we've never had anybody not get paid day of event.
Okay.
Counsel?
David, can you think of a way to approve this tonight with a caveat that you review the framework of the compensation?
I mean, we've approved contracts before with the language included that you're approving it subject to the final approval of the city attorney.
I think
And
I'd
if you
like
want
to
to
do
take that
that.
risk, that's why we handled it before.
Is that a
Call it a
motion?
risk, you do that all the time.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
We have a motion and a second. Would you like the motion read back to you, ma'am? David?
I think the motion is to approve the lease agreement for the use of the Mill Amphitheater as presented to the council tonight, with the stipulation that it must be reviewed by the city attorney prior to being implemented, reviewed and amended as needed.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? It's 3-1.
Thank you.
ma'am. Tab E, Public Works, Pete.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to request the purchase of a new pump for our plant drain station at the west facility. The background on that is one of the original Vaughan pumps at that station errors alarms. It was pulled and evaluated. The pump tested bad at meg bad. We then sent it out for repair quotes and prices. That came back at $13,855. At that point, we got prices on replacement. And staff recommendation is replace the damaged 60-horse Vaughan pump at the west plant with the more efficient 35-horsepower Homa, with the price pump and installed not to exceed $14,430.
Where's Pete?
I'm the new and
We
improved.
called you Pete. So the repair is $13,855. A brand new installed is $14,430.
Mhm.
Okay. I make the motion to authorize the purchase of a Homa 35 horsepower pump from Pro Pump Solutions, Inc. for a price not to exceed $14,430.
Second.
Motion in multiple seconds again. All in favor? It is approved. Tab F, City Manager. Give us some good news.
This is an item that Elisa primarily works with. This is an agreement with the company that helps us stream our meetings. And this is a renewal with a slight reduction in cost. So we recommend approval.
So this is the company that streams this meeting and the other board meetings that go on in the city. And this is to continue the agreement that we already have in place, okay? I make a motion that we, you don't have a cover sheet, so that we continue in this agreement. That, when will it even expire? It's entered into the first day of January 2019. Is it a one-year agreement?
Right.
For 1 year.
A motion and a second, all in favor? It is unanimous. And tab G, City Manager's Report. Now give us some good news.
Are we going to go back?
We are, but I don't see all the parties back
Yeah,
yet.
they're here.
They are back. Have we?
We got a rear load.
Well, David left, so I'm assuming,
We got a garbage truck thing here.
is it a long City Manager Report?
No, but I know Bobby's got
Bobby's back, Bobby's got two.
two that we can go back to.
He wants to talk about
He
garbage.
hadn't finished.
Garbage truck.
Bobby, you're on.
Oh, and the kennel.
Mr. Mayor, we have a second variance application, BA-02-18. It's a variance to reduce required parking spaces for a kennel for Chippy's Place LLC, located at 14931 Veterans Memorial Highway, Villa Rica, Georgia, 30180. This is a proposed new facility. It has not been constructed yet. The plan is to build a building 12,000 square feet, which is 80 by 150. The Unified Development Code requires one parking space per 400 square feet of gross floor area. Would require them to have 30 parking spaces and plus one parking space per employee, and they plan on having 5 employees. Total parking spaces, 35 spaces. Providing 35 spaces would occupy a significant amount of space on the property that is already affected by exceptional conditions, topo and site features. There's some floodplain on the back of the property. Additionally, staff is of the opinion that the nature of a kennel would not generate vehicular traffic, as patrons would most likely be dropping off or picking up their pets. It is not expected the patrons will be parking for extended periods of time, thus most of the 35 spaces would likely be unoccupied. What we've done is we're going to recommend that the variance be approved with a total of 13 standard spaces and 2 ADA handicap spaces. That's one condition. The second condition is the parking reduction applies only to the proposed kennel business.
Okay, any questions of staff?
The applicant is here.
No questions of staff. We would ask the applicant to come forward, please. State your name and address for the record.
I'm Connie Wood. I live at 217 Browning Road, Villa Rica, and I'm back
different place, different site. We are asking for a reduction in the parking spaces, primarily because it says kennel, but it's not a kennel. It's a doggy daycare. There'll be a boutique, and we will be doing boarding. So, you know, our clients, are the pets, of course, but the clients' owners will be dropping them off or picking them up. Some will stop to come into the boutique, but, I mean, you're talking dog food treats, you know, little outfit or whatever. So we really won't need, you know, won't have that many there. And we'll be open 24 hours, but we'll have, you know, approximately 5 per shift, you know, working. So I just don't see, you know, the need to have that many when we're trying to have outdoor play, preserve, keep it as natural as we can. And we have the AT&T easement behind us also, and there is some a swampy area in the very back. So we're just trying to keep it, you know, don't want to have a ton of concrete out there. We're trying to keep it where we can allow outdoor play on natural grounds. So
Is this essentially the same business you brought to us before?
yes, but we're going, we're having to go with a new site, just starting from the ground up.
Sure, we're looking forward to you being in the other.
But trust me, I went 2 years trying to get that place, and I was a bit crushed, but it's okay.
You had a
Just moving on down the
beautiful
road.
presentation last time. I don't see that in my packet this time.
Well,
You haven't decided how it's going to look?
Yes, we do. Yes,
Okay.
Yes, we do.
Well, I'd be interested in seeing that.
Okay, I actually have it with me, but yeah, we do have, we have actually the architect's working on the blueprint stamp, but we already have the drawing there.
Great. That's all I have.
Any other questions of the applicant?
So you're saying that you're required to have 35, but you want to shorten it? That's what you-
Yes, ma'am.
that was-
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank
Okay, this is the public hearing portion of this variance. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this variance, please do so at this time. State your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing none, we will revert back to the council.
Bobby, let me ask you a question. The reason for, well, there are a number of reasons I heard, but one of the reasons, or primary reason, is the topography and the lay of this property and the wet area is one of the reasons why this request for fewer parking spaces would be recommended by staff, right, with these 2 conditions.
Correct.
So it's not that this property has a lot of property conducive to these 35 spaces. It really can't accommodate those 35 spaces.
It would be very tough with the site they have, with
Okay.
the conditions it has to accommodate.
Okay, and we would like to see that kind of development continue, so, thank you. If nobody has any more questions, I have a motion.
Please
I'm ready.
proceed.
I would make a motion that we allow VA 02-18 variance to reduce required parking for a kennel, subject to the staff recommendations and conditions.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? All, is that a yes, ma'am?
Yeah, I guess.
It is unanimous. Item number 5.
Presently, we have a second grapple truck budgeted for our solid waste street department. Based on the fact that we had our original truck refurbished pretty much, and the fact that we've changed, in the process of changing our solid waste pickup operations, we've decided to recommend that we purchase a rear load garbage truck, a 20-yard truck, versus a second grapple truck. And I have 2 major reasons for this. This type truck eliminates back injuries due to the height that employees have to lift junk and trash materials. Currently, we're picking them up on a flatbed, which is about this high. You gotta pick this stuff up, whereas the rear load truck is at waist height.
How come the grapple truck isn't picking those up? I thought that was the idea.
The grapple truck can't run the entire route. There are small piles that it just doesn't make sense to mobilize that unit to pick the stuff up. This truck will run, we'll still use the grapple truck on large piles like we're doing right now, but we're still loading stuff on the back of flatbeds. This will eliminate that. Number one, it's going to cut down. We've had 12 workman's comp claims in the last 2 years with injuries resulting from lifting, hoisting, that kind of stuff. Currently, a flatbed truck picking up loose materials, we may take a load to the land